All right, what's going on? You listen to King Cam with Jubei podcast with Jubei meets messaging. Yes, we are here. And yeah, you see it. The clash of empires. We're talking about Ethiopia versus Europe, or Ethiopia versus whoever wants it. That this has been interesting. I hope all is well with you. I got my notes. Get you something to write on, something to write with. And yes, we are back. We are here. And yeah, I decided to do something really special. I decided to go live now. What had happened was, before I get to that, we're going to talk about the African rulers who defied European conquest. Yep, that's what we're about to get into. We're going to talk about the African rulers who defied European conquest. And now we know there are some famous individuals, but in like Shaka Zulu and Mansa Musa and many others, but we're still on Ethiopia. We're still on the Nile Valley and the Nile Valley culture. And so the main topic is Ethiopia versus Europe, the rise of Menelik and Emperor Yohannes IV. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What are we coming out of? This book here. This book here. The Ethiopians, A History by Richard Pankhurst. It is pretty awesome. And then I realized that it wasn't just Ethiopia versus Europe, but it was Ethiopia versus whoever wants it. Because I found out that Ethiopia got into it with Egypt. Yeah, sure did. Sure did. And so get comfortable. This is Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. And yeah, we're back in the mix. And so we had some scheduling conflicts and everything, but it is what it is. And we got to love on our people, got to love on our families and everything. So a lot of things have been postponed, but we're going to keep it rolling. But now, see what story time, real quick, while everybody's coming in. Now, check this out. Last Friday, I was going to do a live session. I was going to do the solar boat, the boat of Ra. As you guys voted for it, we're going to get to it. But I got a text. From our brother Tony Hawkins. Tony Hawkins out there in California. Shout out to the fam in California. He wanted me to be on a panel discussion with guess who? Baba Kaba. Yeah. Baba Kaba. This guy here, I was on a discussion with him last Friday. I will put the link in the description. It was great. He talked about the Moors before the Moors. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. And so it was a great time. And yeah, I had to do it. I had to get on. So yeah, we had a wonderful discussion. So, but here we are, trying to figure this thing out together, but we're going to do it. Yeah, you are correct. Got to hold everybody accountable, Ethiopia. Yeah, Ethiopia didn't give a darn. You understand me? Because when I started reading this, and they was getting into with the Ottoman Empire in Egypt. Yeah, they didn't care. They didn't care about none of that. Are the Moors Hivites? I'm not sure, but to my understanding, according to our elder, the Moors was a conglomerate of a lot of different groups of people. It wasn't just one group. Welcome, Ali. What's going on? Welcome back. But yeah, it was a lot of different people. It wasn't just one religious group or whatever. They said it was some Moors were Christians, some were Muslims, some were Hebrews. You know what I mean? So yeah. Greet everybody. Hit the like button as you come in. Yes, surprise. Here we are. Greeting. Yeah, I'm thankful that we're here once again. And shout out to One Voice Africa, one of our great members. And he got some info out too. He got the what's his name? The Amharic alphabet in Hez, I think. So check it out. Yeah. I'm glad that you are back. A lot of the alumni has returned. At first, I was going to do some pre-recordings, but this is good. I gotta do it. So Ethiopia versus Europe, the rise of Menelik and Emperor Yohannes IV. All right. Yeah, we got to get back to the foundation. We got to get back into some books and some information. What happens is we kind of get too far into the unbeaten path, dealing with esoteric and symbolism, and we lose sight as to what we're supposed to do here on King Cam and Jubei podcast. So yeah, today we're going to talk about who were the central figures and what shaped their leadership. What were the major threats in Ethiopian sovereignty? Of course, you know, it's Europe, but it was other people, because we realized over the last few months it's been some infighting too, you know. And how did key battles determine the course of Ethiopian history, and what is the broader significance of Ethiopia's resistance? Now, today we're going to talk about Yohannes IV, Emperor and Defender, Menelik II, strategist and visionary, European powers, pressure, intrigue, the Battle of Adwa, and I got something else. Since we're out here, and you know, I'm checking roll because we got some new Njumbe fam that's come in, so we got to shout them out. I really appreciate it. But now, this has been great. This is great. I'm really excited about this. Now, yes, this is our major pillar, Ethiopia, Kush, and Kemet. Pillar 1, Ethiopia, the source and sanctuary. That's where we are. We have 4 pillars. We may do a 5th one. Pillar 2, Kemet, the blueprint of sacred civilization. Pillar 3, Kush, Nubia, the corridor of continuity. And number 4, the hidden code. We've been dealing with the hidden code and science, Kemetic science and symbolism off and on. We dealt with Karnak and everything. But yeah, we got to deal with Mother Ethiopia, you know? So here we are. We talking about Yohannes IV, right? He is the emperor and defender. Call it what you will. These guys here, and so many others, like the king of Shewa, they were the bridge between ancient Ethiopia, as we know it, middle period, up into the modern era. If it were not for them, there would be no Haile Selassie. I'm just saying, if it was not for Menelik and a few others, there would be no Haile Selassie. There would be no Ethiopia as a sovereign empire. You know? So in the late 19th century, Africa was being carved up by European empires. You know, the Berlin Conference in 1884 to 85, they formalized what is often called the Scramble for Africa, which included Italy, Britain, and France racing to establish control over vast regions, right? But one nation didn't play that, and it was Ethiopia. Ethiopia, a land with ancient kingship, deep Christian tradition, and a fiercely independent people. They didn't play no games. All right. So the story of Ethiopia's survival in this age of conquest is inseparable. So we have 2 major figures during this time in the late 1880s. We have Emperor Yohannes IV. Okay. Not 1880s, my bad. 1870s, 1872 to 1889. And then we have Emperor Menelik II, who reigned from 1889 to 1913. These guys were the bridge. So together, through very different styles and strategy, these leaders navigated civil war, religious divisions, foreign issues, and the immense pressure of European imperialism. Yeah, these were the guys. Okay, he says. It shouldn't have been a Haile Selassie. Just me. Well, that's pretty interesting because, to my understanding, he was not part of a direct line. It just so happened that he was there, you know. But we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that, you know. So, but okay, I really appreciate it. Thank you, One Voice Africa. Thank you, fam. Thank you. Shout out to One Voice Africa. They're doing some great work. They're doing some great writings, and check them out. And so, yeah. Haile Selassie, it's a little different. And some people have some issues. And I think Menelik's daughter has some concern about that. But we'll talk about that. Gae's Alphabet. Yes. One Voice Africa is talking about Gae's Alphabet. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah. It's worth it. We're all in this together, and we need some more scholarship and more information out there. But so today we're going to walk through their intertwined legacies, because they were both putting this together. They were both there. Okay. Yohannes, the stern defender of faith and unity, and Menelik, the calculated diplomat and visionary who led Ethiopia to its most famous victory of the Battle of Adwa. And so, as Richard Pankhurst reminds us in his book, the Ethiopians a history. Independence was not a matter of choice or matter of chance. That it wasn't just given to you. Freedom was taken. Sovereignty was taken. Okay, it was a product of shrewd leadership, strong leadership, courageous leaders, and armies, and a willingness to adapt when so much of the continent was being swallowed by the empire. And this is the reality. Okay, we got to make adjustments. We as a people got to make those adjustments. Otherwise, we will have some issues, right? So this is chapter 9 of the book. This is chapter 9 of the book. Okay, Yohannes and Menelik and the European powers, right? So at the death of Theodoros in 1868, which like his life was a turning point of the country's history, we have many things that was happening. Ethiopia was being divided. It was several divisions. Of course, we had the nobles and nobility and some other smaller rulers that was trying to get a foothold in Ethiopia. First to gain prominence was the Aksum Gobazi, the ruler of Amhara, Wag, and Lasta, who was immediately crowned Emperor Takla, okay, at Gondar. So we have that group, right? And then he was, however, soon challenged by another leader in the Jasmine Kasa of Tigray. So they was getting into it. And then so which resulted in the Battle of Aksum on July 11th, 1871. And so what happened is Yohannes came through in the following year, and he contested. Okay, he contested, and so he contested those groups. And so then we have the third. So there's three, based on this, there's three major groups that are triangulating here. We have, if I get to my notes here, we have one group in Gondar, we have another group in Tigray, and then we have Yohannes IV in that same similar area. Then we have Menelik. So all these groups were were vying for power. Okay, and so Yohannes, the second of Ethiopia's great 19th century rulers, was like his predecessor, Theodoros. He was a strong opponent of European Christian missionaries. They said, look, bro, we already got our own Christianity. We got our own books and everything. We don't need you guys meddling or messing with what we're doing over here. Because there was an issue that the Ethiopian Orthodox Church had issues with the Roman Catholic Church. What's going on, King Herc? Shout out to King Herc. He's the mathematician around here, or should I say math magician. He said, IBB to me, fam. What's going on? Yes, the era of princes. Yeah, it was a mess, right? And so they had those battles and they had those skirmishes, and then we have Yohannes, right? And so he was born. His name was born. His birth name was Kasa Mara in the northern region of Tigray. His rise was not inevitable. Ethiopia in the mid-19th century was a fragmented place, just like one voice said, the era of princes. Okay, which powerful nobles ruling in their own regions in their own right. But through military skill and alliances, Kasa gained the upper hand. So in 1872, he was crowned Emperor Yohannes IV at, guess where? At Aksum, the seat of power in Ethiopia. Okay, they had smaller major places, capitals, and things like that, but Aksum is the ancient seat of power in Ethiopia, and he knew that if he was crowned there, it would prove that he's legit, right? Just like the king of Egypt being crowned in Waset, or somebody like the king of Nubia being crowned in Khartoum. Same thing, okay? So that meant something because it shows history and it shows legacy, right? And so the ancient city where Ethiopian kings had long sought legitimacy. So from the very beginning, Yohannes was faced with threats that could have ended his rule. Egypt, under the ambitious Khadab Ismail sought to expand southward into the Horn of Africa. I told you. See, Ethiopia was going to give, it wasn't just Europe that was getting it. Okay. Egypt was trying to, they was trying to expand too. Said, no, bro, you can't come down this way. Remember what had happened a few hundred years ago when everybody was trying to take over Sudan and Ethiopia, and y'all want to chill on it and let these foreigners come in here? Nah, y'all can stay out there. Yeah. That's what was happening. Yohannes challenged the Egyptians. Yep. Yeah, it was at the, I'm gonna find it. Here it is. Conflict with the Egyptians. Yohannes at the beginning of his reign was under strong pressure from who? The Egyptians. They had officially received the port of Massawa, which is a major port, as we discussed before, from his nominal overlord, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in 1868. So Egypt occupied parts of Ethiopia. Okay. And so, well, the port rather. And so, faced with Egyptian hostility, Yohannes decided to appeal, which he was wrong for doing that. He went to appeal to the European Christendom, right? Because he felt, all right, since they were Christian, Europeans were Christian, they have a common ground. Not so much, right? Because he was still black. So, and of course, we understand that Egypt or the Ottoman Empire was Muslim. Okay, so he sent the people to Europe to get some help or something, but it didn't happen. And so this initiative, which we talked about, weaving toreadors early in the century, created a little attention in Europe. Its rulers, particularly after the opening of the Suez Canal, were far more interested in Egypt than in Ethiopia. So even though these places were so-called Christian nations or whatever, they still Europe still was siding with Islamic Egypt. So that's that on that. So what happened is they decided to try to take over Massawa. They tried to take over Massawa. So years later, 1874, the Swiss adventurer in Egyptian service seized Bogos on the Ethiopian-Sudanese border and occupied Karan, one of the principal settlements in the area. At about that time, the local ruler Alat, A-Y-L-A-T, some 30 kilometers inland from Massawa, sold his district to Egypt. And so what they was doing, they was trying to play chess. Okay. We have a Swiss leader occupying his space, and then somebody has set their land to the Egyptians and so on. And then the Egyptians, perhaps influenced by the ease in which the British overthrown Toreadors a little bit before that, they figured they can go ahead and take over the rest of Ethiopia. Nah, that wasn't happening. Okay, so Yohannes responded, get this, it wasn't with paperwork. Yohannes was not going to respond with paperwork. He declared war on Egypt. Yep. And he excommunicated the Coptic church bishops up out of there. He kicked them up out of there. He said, now you can go. You sound like you're op. So the powerful Egyptian army then crossed the Mara River into the heartland of Tigray. They went into Tigray, okay, but were almost annihilated. The Egyptian army was almost annihilated by the emperor's forces at the Battle of Gandat on November 16, 1875. Ethiopia wasn't playing with them. Yeah. Ismail, on learning of this unexpected reverse, assembled a much larger army of 15,000 to 20,000 men, armed with the most modern weapons. Yohannes mauled the invaders at the 3-day Battle of Gara between March 7th and 9th. His soldiers displayed great heroism, captured close to 20 cannons, as well as several thousand rifles. So, though this victory had been so complete, Yohannes, who claimed sovereignty as far as the Red Sea coast, felt unable to drive the invaders from their strongly fortified position. So, yeah, you was not just coming up in Ethiopia like that. Even though there still was pockets of strongholds there, you just was just going to run up in there and do whatever you wanted to do. And Europe is going to find out in a second. Okay? So Egypt, they tried it. Egyptian forces lost. Okay, and so they here come the rest of them. So from the very beginning, like I said before, he was faced with a lot of threats. Okay, and guess what? Guess who was watching in the background? The Europeans. European observers who often underestimated military strength took note. They said this is not a regular military. This is not a regular group. These people are serious about handling business, right? So both times Ethiopians inflicted crushing defeats, stunning the whole world. Okay, yeah, but Egypt was not Yohannes' only concern. It wasn't. Okay, that was the reality. All right, to the west we have the Mahdist State. The west, which means not the Western world. West from Ethiopia. I'm gonna show you in the map in a second. Brother Mo loves maps, and so do I. I'm gonna show you in a second. The Mahdist State was rising in Sudan. Okay, so after Egypt was fighting Ethiopia, then we got to deal with Sudan at the border. After the religious revolt led by Muhammad Ahmad, the self-declared Mahdi, Mahdi, these forces raided Ethiopia's borders repeatedly, and Yohannes spent much of his reign defending against them. That's why we call him the emperor and defender. Internally, Yohannes was determined he was trying to centralize that authority. Of course, for the last century, from the 1700s all the way up to that point, Ethiopia was broken in pieces, different rulers. So he focused on centralizing that authority. Okay, he imposed strict demands on Ethiopia's nobility and clergy. And in the book, Pankhurst notes that he required Muslim leaders in certain regions to accept baptism, a policy that, while it is controversial, reveals that his view of Ethiopian identity is inseparable from Christianity. So everybody was under that banner, no matter what religion you follow. So for Yohannes, defending the church was defending the nation. But his strictness, was seen and felt. Okay, sometimes it alienated his allies. Okay, regions like Wollo and Shewa, okay, often rose under his authority, and so some people kind of push back. Right, one of those regional leaders like Menelik of Shewa will actually push back. Yohannes' reign, we'll talk about Menelik in a second. Yohannes' reign came to a tragic end in 1889, leading his army against a massive Mahdist invasion. He was wounded in the Battle of Metama. Even in death, his body became a symbol captured by enemies, but remembered by the Ethiopians. So, but before we get into that battle, we're going to talk about the Mahdist State. Okay, Sudan's rising power. Okay, they call it the Al-Dawla al-Mahdiya, founded by Muhammad Ahmad, who declared himself the Mahdi, the guided one. The Mahdist State combined religious zeal with political ambition. This is in Sudan. Beginning in 1881, the Mahdists launched a revolt against the Turco-Egyptian administration, ultimately establishing a state stretched across southern Sudan. These forces were a disciplined group. They were kind of fanatic. They was over the top, but they was also battle hardened. Okay, they already shocked the world by defeating the Egyptians and killing General Charles Gordon in Khartoum in 1885. So not only Ethiopia had hands, Sudan did too. Yeah, and that they were, yes, that's correct. They were. What's going on? Janam Williams. What's going on? Yeah, priestly warriors, and we forget that this group of Sudan came from the Magi, so there's a lot of that is baked in. Yeah, and so their victories humiliated European powers. Why? Because it's just like many times before, the Europeans were trying to indirectly use other countries to fight their battles for them. So they thought that Egypt, of course, it was becoming a tourist attraction. They thought, okay, well, these Egyptians could fight those battles for us. That we, fight those battles we could. Yeah. So it was serious, and so for Yohannes, the Mahdists were more than a military threat. They represented a challenge to Ethiopian sovereignty. He was not playing with nobody. Okay, in dealing with the Arab princes, yeah, my man, he said, my man's comfy cornrows, yeah. yeah, you know what I'm saying? You don't know about that, Yeah, the cornrows to the back. But yeah, but we have to understand during the era of princes, Ethiopia was unstable. So he was trying to centralize Ethiopia and also assert his power against other nations, right? And so they represented a challenge to his sovereignty. Sudan was, as well as Egypt, and border security. They repeatedly raided borderlands such as, let me see, here it is, Kadrif and Galabat, pressing the empire's defenses. Yohannes, his strategy was clear: defend Ethiopia while demonstrating that his empire could stand against African and European challengers. Okay, now check this out. Ethiopia or Abyssinia. All right, shout out to the fam. Shout out to Coptic literature. Shout out to them. This was also taken by from P.M. Holt's book, A Modern History of Sudan. That's the second edition. But now check this out. This Ethiopia is right here to the bottom right, and this is Sudan right here. And this is where the point of contention is. I'm gonna put a little bit closer. Right here, Galabat and Gundar, right next door. Galabat is Sudanese and Gundar is Ethiopian. Yeah, it was a lot of back and forth. It was a lot of back and forth. Understanding that the Mahdis lived there, okay, helps us see why Yohannes personally led his army at Matama. He faced not just another army, but a deeply motivated ideological force that had defeated seasoned soldiers and seasoned rulers before. Okay, the stage was set for confrontation of visions for the Horn of Africa, which is the ancient Christian empire of Ethiopia versus the revolutionary Islamic State of Sudan. And so this set the stage for the Battle of Matama. Okay, right here, this clash here between, let's see, before Ethiopia can deal with Europe, they had to deal with Sudan. Okay, right at the border. All right, so Yohannes had to deal with Sudan, right, at the Battle of Matama when empires collided in the desert, because we forget that Egypt was an empire, right? Sudan was an empire, as well as Ethiopia, all sovereign, always trying to expand at the same time. Okay, now in the deserts, okay, between Sudan and Ethiopia, March 1889 to we got to get an understanding of this battle, also known as the Battle of Galabat. This is the story of clashing and colliding empires, brilliant military strategy, and one of the most dramatic turns of fate, turns of events that you ever hear, because this battle freed Ethiopia to actually deal with Europe. Okay, what makes this battle different is that it's really the collision of three worlds: the ancient Ethiopian empire trying to expand, the Sudanese Mahdist State at the height of its power, and then lurking in the background, we got Europe. In 1889, the Mahdist State, this revolutionary Islamic movement, this revolutionary Islamic movement shocked the world by defeating the British and killing General Gordon at Khartoum. So that's another reason why the British wasn't messing with Sudan, because they killed one of their boys. So they cool with Egypt, because they can finesse the system a little bit more. But them Sudanese and Ethiopians wasn't having it. Okay, so the British tried to invade Sudan. Sudan took out one of their leaders 4 years before that. So they are a force to be reckoned with. So meanwhile, in Ethiopia, under Emperor Yohannes IV, one of the last independent powers in Africa, Yohannes isn't just sitting back watching Europe and posting what they're doing and stuff like that. That's the difference. See, that's the difference between a lot of our Nile Valley leaders at that time. They wasn't just talking about what Europe was doing to them. They was either being proactive about it or they was reactive. And sometimes they was very extreme. What happens is a lot of us we would say, okay, the man is doing this and they doing that. What are we doing? All we're doing is just talking about it instead of teaching, instead of being proactive in this process, instead of we should be trying to take care of our people or take care of what's happening. They're saying they're taking away things in our education system. Why aren't we prepared to have our own education system? Oh, they're saying that these people aren't professionals or whatever. So, what are we prepared to do? See what I'm saying? So our Ethiopian and Sudanese leaders were proactive in this regard. They did not want Europe's help. They in a sense, I think I fault Yohannes IV in a sense for trying to appeal to the Christian conscience of Europe. But other than that, once he realized that he had no friends, he handled business. Right? So both empires were trying to expand, and now these two powers have been looking at each other across the border for years. Okay, and this was the region around Metama and Gandat, two towns on both sides. Let me show you again. Right there, these two towns here. Okay, on either side of the Ethiopian Sudanese border, the Mahdists control the Sudanese side, and Yohannes wants it back. So, in March 1889, Yohannes decides enough is enough. Okay, he personally leads a massive Ethiopian army. He said, look, we're taking estimates of anywhere from, say, 80,000 men to 100,000 men. He brought the heat. Okay, he brought his soldiers to this border right here, ready to throw hands. Okay, this wasn't just, say, a raiding party, a little snatch and grab. This was going to be an imperial campaign. That's what it was. I'm saying, so the emperor himself is at the front. Okay, which tells you something. See, a lot of leaders now, they would tell other people what to do and just hide in the background or whatever. Most of these leaders was out there. Yeah. And so the Mahdist forces in Metama and Gandat were outnumbered. They were strong, but outnumbered. Yeah. They got, say, maybe at most 60,000 troops or whatever. And they were commanded by Emir Abu Anja and Zaki Tumal, but they weren't battle tested like that. Okay, these aren't just regular soldiers. These were hardened veterans who've been fighting for years. And not only that, so we had the Ethiopian army that was able to fight, but we also, even though Sudan had smaller numbers, they just defeated the British army. Don't get it twisted. It wasn't one of those things where we can outnumber you and our group can swallow this group up. No. The Sudanese, even though they were smaller, they were strong too. Like comment below. Let me know. But yeah. So in March 9th, 1889, these two armies collided. The Ethiopians have the numbers, better equipment in some respects, but they came into the heart of Sudan. They were the Sudanese wasn't just defending, say, ideologies at this point. You're in the heart, you're in Khartoum, you're in the heart of their land. Now they're defending their land now. Yeah. And so even though the Mahdis were being pushed back, they were fighting. Okay. And so they came in with overwhelming force. And initially the Ethiopians, it was working towards for the Ethiopians, whatever, but the army was pushing forward, breaking into defensive lines, and it looked like, because of the overwhelming numbers, the Ethiopians was able to kind of push the Sudanese back into Metama, but that's where the Sudanese drew the line. These guys was taking position, taking small victories here and there, and coming up. Here come Khartoum and coming up all the way to Metama. Yeah, that's when the Mahdist forces their backs was against the wall, and that's when they was fighting the hardest. But then in an instant, everything changed. Yeah. In a blink, everything changed. Guess what happened? Because remember, I told you our leaders was leading the battles. They weren't in the back. Guess what happened to Yohannes? Yeah. A stray bullet got him. Yeah. Fire from somewhere in the chaos of battle strikes Emperor Yohannes IV, the Emperor of Ethiopia, the man who was supposed to be the leader of this victory, the man leading a charge to victory, is mortally wounded right there on the battlefield. Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. This is one of the reasons why we need to stop fighting each other. We are strong together. Both groups had strong armies, strong leaders. Why are we fighting each other for? Meanwhile, Europe is just watching, taking notes, paying attention. Yeah. You're correct. Yeah. Bring back those days. We got to be smart. We got to be smart about it. Because we lost so many people, and we lost another leader. Okay. Again, think about what this means in the pre-modern army. The emperor isn't just, say, a political leader. He was the embodiment of the Ethiopian country, of that nation. Okay. He's the source. He is the source of the sovereignty. That's the seat of power. Okay, what's going on? Yeah, Library Without Borders says hi, King, and hello to everyone. Don't forget to greet everybody and hit the like button. Yes, we are catching up on one of the books. Yeah. Speaking of that, here's my book. Okay, here's my book for those who are interested in crusade and jihad in East Africa, religious conflict, and their impact. It is out and available on Amazon. Check it out. All right. Yeah. So now think about what that means. Okay. The Ethiopian army, which moments before was on the verge of total victory. It was on the verge of total victory. And then chaos ensued. You did. They brought Ali says, bought that book. It's a great book. Yeah. And guess what? I'm possibly working on a second edition because I got some other things to talk about. Because shout out to Brother Ferguson. Brother Ferguson said, hey, it's a great book, but it was short. Hey, but yeah, we got to do it. And I got something else on my sleeve. Stay tuned. Yeah. Thank you very much. And so the chaos erupts. Different nobles, commanders start thinking about what this means for secession back back at home rather than finishing the battle. You read about what's going on at the house and who could take over, and you still got bullets flying everywhere. Come on, bro. See, the Mahdists sensing the shift, this sudden uncertainty in their enemy's counterattack, and it shows. And so, guess what? The Sudanese went forward. They pressed ahead. Okay. See, get that. And so the Ethiopians managed to recover the emperor's body and pull back across the border, but the strategic initiative was completely lost. The battle ends as a tactical stalemate, maybe even a slight, victory towards the Sudanese. Why? Because they did take out the leader. Because on the flip side, the Sudanese did take out the British, one of the British generals. They won. Same thing here. And so I don't think it was straight bullet. I think the Sudanese who was the descendants of the Magi, who from Tasseti, the land of the bow, they had a sniper. I think so. But here's why the battle matters so much beyond just immediate casualties of emperors. Yohannes IV's death, it triggers a succession crisis in Ethiopia. Multiple claimants vie for the throne. Back at home, the empire was expanding and consolidating. Its power suddenly turns inward, consumed by internal conflict again. Okay, and so Menelik II eventually emerges as the new emperor, but he has different priorities than Yohannes. He's less interested in confronting the Mahdists and more focused on dealing with the Italians. Yeah, because I told you, the Europeans was chilling back there waiting. Okay, this shift in Ethiopian policy has huge implications. Okay, the Mahdist State gets a reprieve. They're not facing Ethiopian pressure anymore, which allows them to consolidate their position in Eastern Sudan. But this reprieve is temporary because the real threat isn't Ethiopia anymore, it's Europe. And Menelik II knew it. So within a decade, the British were back again. In 1898, the British crushed the Mahdist State, and Sudan becomes an Anglo-Egyptian Sudanese situation. The Mahdist dream of an independent Islamic state was over. But what about Ethiopia? What about Ethiopia? Ethiopia survives as an independent nation. Okay? Survives as an independent nation, and in 1896, Menelik II achieves what Yohannes IV could not. He defeats a European colonial power at the Battle of Adwa, which we'll talk about in a second. One of the most significant African victories over European imperialism. Ethiopia remains free, while most of all Africa falls under some sort of control. Okay, so the Battle of Matama is a incredible historical pivotal point, but like you guys mentioned, it was a lot of too much of us fighting each other. Yeah, and you're correct. It says together we are much stronger. Look at the Sahel region today. Yeah, shout out to Captain Burkina Faso and Niger. It is happening. Okay, the shout out to the fam, Indi Belali, Sudan. That 4,000-mile strip is uniting. Okay, shout out to the fam out there trying to make it happen and be independent. Okay, yeah, this is correct. And so the Battle of Matama is the pivotal point. One bullet changes the course of the battle, which changes the course of Ethiopian secession, which results in the rise and ascension of Haile Selassie later on. The Mahdist State gets a few more years of independence before British imperialism totally crushes them. Ethiopia transforms from an expanded empire into a defensive kingdom that somehow manages to preserve its sovereignty through the colonial era, right? And so, yeah, it says the plan was to fight Menelik, but Yohannes redirected because of the Mahdist expansion. You are correct, because Yohannes was about to go after Menelik II, but got busy with the Sudanese. But what do you think would happen? What do you think would have happened? Do you think dealing with, say, Yohannes and Menelik, do you think they would have came to a common ground, realized that there was some external opposition, or do you think they would have went to blows too? Because I think, to my understanding, I think Menelik and Theodoros was into it. Yeah, so let me know. Like and comment below. Let me know if you think Yohannes and Menelik II would have found some kind of common ground. Okay, and so, and all of it traces back to all this secession, all these changes traces back to that fight between the Sudanese. Okay, now, and of course, we know Europe was watching, right? And so we have Yohannes IV. Now we're going to get into Menelik, the strategist and visionary. And then we'll deal with some European powers, pressure and intrigue, and the Battle of Adwa, and some legacy, right? Now, Menelik II, strategist and visionary. Okay. While Yohannes fought in the north, Menelik II, ruling from Shewa, a small little location in Ethiopia, was steadily building his own power base. Born in 1844, Menelik had survived captivity as a young boy under Emperor Theodoros II, and later emerged as king of Shewa, Shewa. His years of captivity gave him both resilience and political education. He learned the ruthlessness of Ethiopian power struggles. So by the 1870s and 1880s, Menelik was already expanding his territory, incorporating Oromo regions and extending his authority southward and eastward. Unlike Yohannes, Menelik was known for his pragmatism. He forged alliances. He was very diplomatic. He was a politician. Intermarried with powerful families, and used diplomacy as effectively as the sword. So, like the people say sometimes, the pen is mightier than the sword. So Menelik II, he used that. He put that together. Okay, and so Menelik was also quick to see the value of engaging with Europeans. I still have issues with almost every ruler in Ethiopia tries to engage with the Europeans, but he tried to do it on his terms. Okay, he traded ivory and coffee for modern weapons, playing rival powers against each other. And of course, in the book, Pankhurst described Menelik as a leader who sought not isolation, but selective adaptation of European resources while resisting European control, which is hard to do. You want some of that stuff, but that proves to be a gateway drug for the Europeans. If they feel that you want something from them, they feel that they can occupy your space. Yeah. So, but in my opinion, perhaps his greatest asset was his wife, the Queen Empress Teyetu Bito. Yeah. Okay. The Queen Mother, his wife, and closest advisor, Teyetu is deeply involved in the matters of state and war, and her influence was crucial in the years leading to the Battle of Adwa. And the irony of the name, okay, Taytu, Teyetu. I can hear Tayi, Queen Tayi, Amenhotep III's wife. How instrumental she was in Kemet during this time, during the Golden Age, during the New Kingdom era. That Queen Tayi is King Tut's grandmother. How important she was and how diplomatic she was. So now we see that a little bit later on through Empress Teyetu Bito, the wife of Menelik II. Now, when Yohannes died, In 1889, the secession crisis followed. Menelik maneuvered quickly. He had to make sure paperwork was signed real fast. Gaining recognition as emperor. Almost immediately, he was faced with, of course, the ambitions of Italy. And, of course, then we have European pressure and intrigue, right? You know, Europe wasn't going to just let them make it. Europe wasn't going to do that. And so by the late 19th century, the Horn of Africa had become a playground for European powers. Okay. The British controlled Egypt and eyed the Red Sea. Okay. The French clung to their outposts at Djibouti. Okay, which is right there on the edge between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Okay, but it was the Italians who were the most aggressive. Okay, everybody else wanted some seaports here and there, but Italy wanted some land. They wanted some land. So they had occupied Eritrea and dreamed of expanding south into the Ethiopian highlands. Now, we have some fam out there that like to mention Eritrea as an independent state, which is fine. But we have to understand from whence Eritrea came. Where did they come from? They came out of Italy. Because at one point in time, Ethiopia or Sudan occupied Eritrea. Let's argue. You see what I'm saying? And so what happened is Italy occupied Eritrea, okay? But to secure their influence in that area, they made the Treaty of Wuchale with Menelik II. But get this, the treaty was written in two different languages, right? Shout out to One Voice of Africa. One in Amharic and the other one in Italian. But this is how the Europeans try to be tricky with it. In the Amharic version, Menelik recognized Italy's claim to Eritrea, which is fine. But in the Italian version, in the European version, there was a little change in the paperwork. There was a little difference. Okay, a little discrepancy, like they said, controversy. It implied that Ethiopia had become an Italian protectorate or a province. Yeah. Over there, when in Ethiopia, they say, okay, we're cool. We can let y'all have Eritrea, right? Fine. But over there in Italy, they said, no, Ethiopia is our province now. Yeah. And when Menelik discovered that, when he saw that, he refused to accept it. And it was on from there. He declared war on Italy, which rightfully so. You lied to them. Y'all shook hands and everything. Y'all had all these meetings, and then you turn around and say that we're part of your country. No, that's not how it goes here. We're not gonna do that. Yeah, he said Menelik got them weapons from Europe that he used to whoop Italy's behind. Yeah. Menelik was ambitious when it come down to Yohannes. He should have helped Yohannes. Yeah, I guess you could say that. And somebody said if Menelik and Yohannes went to blows, it would have been disastrous. I think so. And Europe in Europe would be salivating on that. That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. I think so. Yeah, I truly think so. Yeah, he did. Menelik got them weapons and went to work. And so he understood this was deception, this was lying, and they called him out on it. Menelik understood that facing Italy would require unity. So he summoned the nobles from across Ethiopia, calling on their loyalty to defend the nation. He also continued to import weapons from ensuring that Ethiopian forces would not be outmatched by European rifles and artillery. So he prepared. He was prepared. Okay, he didn't just go out there and jump off the porch. Okay, Menelik was strategic. Okay, and so Then we have the Battle of Adwa, Ethiopia's defining moment. Okay, here we go. But before that, I got a question. I got a question. Y'all get ready. Okay. Live in a hidden village or an ancient city. Like and comment below. Let me know. Live in a hidden village or an ancient city. Let me know. All right. Like and comment. Hidden village, ancient city. Let's get it. Now, the Battle of Adwa. Okay. Ethiopia's defining moment. See. Somebody says Ethiopia was conquered. They resisted colonization, but so did the Mama Kingdom. No, Ethiopia was not conquered. Ethiopia was not overtaken. Okay. It says, one voice is hard to say conquer, more like occupation, but this is the first Italian war, not the second with Haile Selassie. That is correct. That is correct. Folks say hidden village. Hidden village, yeah. Shout out to Miss Blue. Yeah. Hidden King Hurt. Yeah, we want to be just out the way. You know what I'm saying? We're tired of the 8 a.m. traffic. We're tired of that. We're tired of, an hour to go up the street somewhere. You understand? Yeah, let's go. The Battle of Adwa. On March 1st, 1896, armies of Ethiopia and Italy clashed near the town of Adwa. Menelik and his wife had mobilized an enormous force. Remember, if they could bring 100,000 over there to Sudan, it was nothing to do it in their own country. Perhaps as many as 100,000 warriors from every corner of the empire. Now, of course, the Italians were confident in their modern weaponry, underestimated both the numbers and the determination of the Ethiopians. But Menelik, his strategy was brilliant. He used the mountainous terrain to his advantage. He used his own environment to his advantage. Okay. Once again, these boys were playing chess and not checkers. Okay. And coordinate the armies with precision. So when fighting erupted, the Ethiopian forces overwhelmed the Italian lines. Okay. Entire brigades were destroyed. Thousands of Italian soldiers were killed or captured within hours. Italy got there and got swallowed up. Okay, so within hours, so the dream of an Italian empire in Ethiopia had collapsed. So the dream of an Italian empire in Ethiopia had collapsed. The Italian army was defeated by Ethiopia. Adwa was not just a victory, it was a statement, okay? Ethiopia had defeated a European colonial power on the battlefield. Okay, as Pankhurst observes in his book, Adwa resounded far beyond Ethiopia striking a blow against the myth of European invincibility in Africa. News of this victory spread rapidly in places, get this, in parts of the United States, in Harlem, even Cairo and Delhi. In the Caribbean, Adwa became a symbol of African pride and resistance. Okay? Now, so the reigns of Yohannes IV and Menelik II were different in style. They were different. Yohannes was a stern defender, a man of faith and sacrifice. Menelik was a strategist, a builder of roads, telegraphs, and modern army. But together, their legacies, I think, intertwined in the story of Ethiopia's survival. Ethiopia was not colonized. Ethiopia was not colonized. It was not colonized. It remains sovereign, a rare beacon of independence in a colonized continent. Okay, the example of Adwa inspired generations of anti-colonial leaders across Africa. So as we think about the Ethiopian history, we are reminded that resistance required both defense and vision. You got to be smart. Yohannes' steadfastness against enemies and Menelik's diplomacy and modernizing ambition. Ethiopia stand against Europe's. It reminds us that history was not only written by conquerors, but sometimes it's written by those who refuse to be conquered. See what I'm saying? See, what happens is most of the time the hunter and not the lion is telling the story. And sometimes when it comes down to Ethiopia and Nile Valley information, the line is telling the story. So yeah. So we're gonna deal with more. We're gonna get this because we got chapter 10 coming up. We got chapter 10 coming up. Where is that? Yeah, the beginnings of modernization. That's what we'll get into. Menelik, Iyasu, Zalditu, and Haile Selassie. Yeah, and Haile Selassie. Yeah. So if you want to know more about Ethiopia, Kim and Kush, like and subscribe. See what I'm saying? Yeah. down with the Europeans. Yeah. I have to pronounce it like that. See what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. And Library Without Borders, I would choose the Hidden Village. And yeah, also yes for the Ethiopians defeating the Italian army. Yeah. Now, so we just listened. So we dealt with Pillar 1, Ethiopia, the source of sanctuary. That is one of our major pillars on our podcast. Pillar 2, Kemet, the blueprint and sacred civilization. Number 3, Kush and Nubia, and 4, the hidden code. We, like I said before earlier, we spent a lot of time dealing with the esoteric information and all that, but I felt it was necessary to get back to our foundation, get back to while we're here, and our primary focus is on Ethiopia and books, good books, right? Yeah. It's Dominique Williams. He said both men were ideally for his respectful times of leadership. Yeah. All right. Now, here's a couple of books of African history of Africa by Zainab Badawi. We're going to get into that book. We're going to get to that book next semester. We're going to get to that. The Orthodox Church of Ethiopia, a history. Okay. Here's another one. This is really good. The updated edition of History of Ethiopia, Harold G. Marcus, Ethiopian Borderlands by Richard Pankhurst. And here's the book. We got a few more chapters. We got about 2 more chapters. We'll finish that by the end of this month. And this is my book. Okay, for the fam. This is my new book. And I got another one coming up, by the way. I got another book coming up. It is a new one. This is going to be an ebook, but I'll tell y'all next week. So the Crusades and Jihad in East Africa, religious conflicts and their impact by yours truly. Check it out. It's on Amazon. Get that. All right. Next thing. Coming soon. You guys asked for it. We're going to do it. The day boat Ra's journey across the sky, the Manajet, the bark of a million years. We got to get into that. We got to get into it. You guys asked for it. We're going to do it really soon. Now, coming up really quick. Let me get to that. Yeah, that's coming up. The day boat, all right? And Ra's journey. Now, Njube members, shout out to Brother Mo and Brother Isu. Okay, they get the new information as it comes. They get all the updates and all the things. Join the membership because membership has its privileges. And we got some new Njube members. And I'm checking roll. I am checking roll. Guess what? You know what I'm saying? We back in class. So guess what we got to do? We got to check roll. Shout out to Baba Kaba. Now, shout out to Tony Hawkins and Baba Kaba. They had me on their live last week, and I talked to the one and only Baba Hawata Kamini, okay, about his new book. So I'll put that link in the description also. It was great. It was a great discussion. He talked about, let me get this real quick. He talked about the Moors before the Moors. That was great. That was awesome. He was cooking too. He was great. So check it out. Shout out to Baba Kaba, like I said. Megamond Nubian, shout out to the fam. Zuzu Sisa, okay. Master English Coaching, Missy Greenhorn, Zep Teppy Slim, Solani Music, and the alumni. Those who have been with me this last year. We talked about Queen Sobekne Faru. We talked about a lot of things. So shout out to the alumni. I really appreciate it. If you are here and you are still present, okay, hit the like button and type here in the chat. I'm lazy today, Stan. We got a few more weeks of regular school, and we're about to get into our Christmas break, and I can't wait. So yeah. Shout out to much love to the family. Shout out to Ali. Thank you. He said thank you again for another wonderful live. We're gonna get back into it. We missed a few weeks. We're gonna get back into the groove of things. I was gonna do one Friday, but I was a guest on somebody else's. Library Without Borders. Check her channel out. It's great. Now she's serious about them books, by the way. So shout out to Jajamni Williams. Shout out to Darkside. Shout out to the fam. Okay. Let me see. One Voice Africa. King Herc, what's going on? King Hercules. Miss Blue, what's going on? Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being awesome. Rolling with me. This was short notice. I just instead of me doing a recording, I said, man, I have not hung out with the fam in weeks. So it was great. It was great. I said, yes, I need this break. Man, people don't understand. Teacher tired is different. So, but yeah. So shout out to the fam. I really appreciate the alumni for being here. Thank you guys for being here. But yeah, we got more to come. We just got to talking about Ethiopia versus Europe and whoever wants it, right? Yohannes IV, Menelik II, European powers who was trying to lay in wait. They was lurking, the Battle of Adwa, and a little bit of legacy. Now, if you like the content, share with somebody that may enjoy it, and or share it on your social media of choice. All right, this is the King Cam with Jubei podcast, and Jubei means message. We talked about the rise of Menelik and Emperor Yohannes, or African leaders who defied Europe. All right, but now, before we go, are there any questions or concerns? Are there any other questions? We're gonna get into it. We're gonna get back into our regular groove of things and everything. So we're gonna get some more recordings out, but I had to do this one live. I had to do it. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate you guys rolling with me. So I had to do it live. But yeah, are there any other questions or concerns before we go? All right. Let me see if I can do it. Since you guys are here, let me see if I can do this real quick. Let me do this real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and show you the new book. I'm gonna show you the new book. Okay. Yours truly just made a new ebook, and it will be coming out in a few days. Okay. All right. So let me see if I can share. See if I can share the screen here. Okay. And it is on, just like my other book, it is on. It is on Amazon. Okay. It is a ebook. All right. It's a happy I made it for this live. See you in the next. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah. Let me see if I can. Here it is. This is my new book. Yep, Decoding the Symbols: A Beginner's Guide to Comedic Spiritual Science. Yes, what happens is we would mention the Ankh, the Jed Pillar, the Wise Scepter, the Feather Ma'at, the Solar Bark, Uraeus, the Scatap, or the Zephyr, and many others. And we will mention them in passing, but we would assume that people know what we're talking about. So this is my second book. All right. This is my second book, Decoding the Symbols: A Beginner's Guide to Comedic Spiritual Science. It is coming out on the 15th. It is an ebook. So yeah. So this is my new one. Okay. And hope you guys like it. And we'll do more like that. We'll do more like that. All right. So yeah. So check it out. I'll put that link in there also. But if there are, yeah, we appreciate it. But if there are no other questions, I think I held you guys long enough. But yeah, this is the King Cam with Jubei podcast, and Jubei means message. And we talked about Ethiopia versus Europe and versus whoever else wanted. And I will talk to you later. Thanks for coming.